in Minnesota in probably 20 years. Bring gas.
Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Time for another round of hottest Wolves takes, and for clips of these to be strewn about the internet without full context and us to get absolutely destroyed on social media.
Bring it on.
A weekly tradition here on Flagrant Howls. So we'll get started here. We'll go around the room with our hottest Wolves takes. Wolves back in action, back-to-back games against the Pelicans here this week, tonight, and then Friday, and then another crack at the possibly full-strength Pacers later on this week. But let's start by just going across the street real quick here to Kieran's, Dex.
Yeah, Irish pub located in the Twin Cities, just steps away from Target Center and Target Field. You can belly up to the bar. They have big screens all over the place. They have award-winning pours. You got fish and chip options there. I know St. Patty's Day technically passed, but you can still get your fish and chip fix in. And also, by the way, if you're a Venn diagram of Flagrant Howls and Score North Twin Show fans, we will have a live broadcast from Kieran's on Twins opening day, on the home opener, I really should say, home opener. So if you're planning to be at the home opener, stop in at Kieran's. We're going to be there. It's going to be an absolute blast. Go stop into Kieran's before and after every Timberwolves or Twins game.
Shout out to MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air, too, for powering Flagrant Howls this season, Judd.
Yes, and let's talk about a very important thing, and that is the importance of trust, because it's important that when it comes to your plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, that you have the ultimate trust. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can have that with MSP. They recently came to my house and did some work, and they did outstanding work. And if Sports Dad lets you in his house to fix things, guess what? You can trust them. They did great stuff. And thanks to also our friends at Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Store, they have proudly partnered with MSP for the Big Green Egg giveaway. You can win this grill by booking a repair. Get $60 off any HVAC or plumbing repair, and you will be entered for a chance to win. The Green Egg from Frats, again, and thanks to them, has a $1,000 value. So a win-win between these two great local companies that have partnered together. For service from MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air, just give them a call, 651-615-4292, or go to their website, callmsp.com. That's callmsp.com. Keep your family and your house safe and sound with a company you can trust.
Okay, boys, it's time for our hottest Timberwolves takes here. And I want to give you, this morning, usually it's pretty easy for us to we're like narrowing down which hottest take we have to get to. This morning, I kind of woke up still really, I don't know what the word is, irked, I guess, by that loss against the Pacers. And it's like, do I overreact to that game that everyone's kind of over at this point? There's definitely some clutch time stuff we could talk about on this episode, but it occurred to me two things. Number one, that game against the Pacers, there's been a handful of those. They're kind of fluky. They're also kind of part of the DNA of the Timberwolves. But I don't think you have to worry about sleepwalking through a first half as much once you get to the playoffs. Like, this team and Anthony Edwards clicks it in for the playoffs more than they do for the first half against, it's game 67 against the Pacers backups, right? So I'm going to take you forward-looking, and Positive Phil has made his return to Flagrant Howls after a therapy session 2 days ago. My hottest Wolves take is that Anthony Edwards is potentially 3 months away from surpassing Kevin Garnett as the number one player in the Timberwolves franchise pecking order. And allow me to state my case here.
Yeah,
huh?
Yep.
I could tell you tilted
dramatic
your
pause.
head a little sideways at me.
It was a dramatic pause by you, and I'm like, he's not going to end with that. He wants to make the case, so I want to hear it.
No, I want to. I was wondering if there'd
It's
be an audible
clipped.
gasp, or
it's going to be clipped, and you'll end with that, and that'll be it.
You can even just put some AI voiceover, which they do now too. Some other follow up to this, but I will say, like, obviously KG, longevity, tenacity, night after night as a defensive player. KG is the better overall player. Like, he's one of the top 50 players in NBA history, maybe even higher up on that list, because he did it for 20 years. So, obviously. However, accomplishments matter. Peak greatness, I think, matters. And in Kevin Garnett's 12 years as a Timberwolf, well, 14 years as a Timberwolf, but we're going to we're going to put the 2 years at the end in a different category. He came back as more of like a mentor and a bench player. But 12 years as a Timberwolf the first time around, and the Timberwolves only won 2 playoff series and made 1 trip to the Western Conference Finals. Some of that was like the teammates around him, the front office's inability to put. Ant has had some better castmates here than KG did for the majority of his Wolves career. But if you think about this, in half, not even half, because this is what, year 5 for Anthony Edwards? So in less than half the time, Anthony Edwards has already equaled those playoff accomplishments. So he's already won the 2 playoff series that KG did, and he's already made a trip to the Western Conference Finals. It's very plausible this spring that you're going to wind up in the first round of the playoffs. Now, you might have to win a play-in game to get there. I still think they're going to wind up just solidly in as a 6 seed. I think someone's going to fall down. But you're likely to draw in the first round the Rockets, Nuggets, Lakers, or Grizzlies. I'll ask you this question. If they play the Rockets, Nuggets, Lakers, or Grizzlies in the first round, how terrified are you of any of those 4 teams in a 7-game series?
Terrified? No, I'm not terrified.
Yeah. I mean, Lakers with like a full Luka,
Right,
LeBron,
Luka,
but
right.
the size is a major
Right.
advantage for the Wolves.
I don't think I would. So to reverse that question a little bit, yeah, if they play the Lakers, I don't know I'm picking the Wolves, but I'm certainly not terrified.
I'm picking the Wolves against any of these 4 teams in a 7-game series, personally.
I need to see where the Lakers are at going into that series now that they've got Doncic.
Yeah. But it is very plausible that if it's
Yeah.
Wolves Nuggets, like, I mean, the Wolves have kind of owned the Nuggets. If
They
it's
match
Wolves
up well.
Rockets are young and experienced,
Yep.
that they would win that first round series. And that right there would give Anthony Edwards more playoff series wins in a Wolves uniform than Kevin Garnett. Mm-hmm. All right, well, if they win that series and now you're feeling like, whoa, this is great. Is there anyone that they could face in the second round, Oklahoma City or Golden State, like some of the more challenging teams? Is there anyone they could draw in the second round where you feel like this is where the road ends in 5 games, right? And we could debate that. That's probably a separate show, but it is very plausible that they win 1, maybe 2 playoff series with health, Anthony Edwards hulking up in the playoffs, the chemistry that they have formed in the 8-game winning streak. And if they do that, Ant would then have double the playoff series wins and double the Western Conference Finals trips as KG did in less than half the time in a Timberwolves uniform. Also, Anthony Edwards has quadrupled the number of 40-point games in his career as Kevin Garnett as a Timberwolf. Anthony Edwards has 5 more points per game average in the playoffs than Kevin Garnett does as a Wolf. Ant averages like 25 points a game. I'd have to go look, but it's 5.5 points more per game than KG as a Timberwolf in the playoffs on higher efficiency, higher field goal percentage. And Ant also has a higher career scoring average by 4 points per game as Kevin Garnett in a Timberwolves uniform. And that gap is only going to widen because Anthony Edwards is now going to be a perennial 27, 29, 30 points per game guy through his prime. So I love KG, and I, for years, have died on the hill of he was better than Duncan, but just had worse infrastructure, and it's going to take 10 years for Anthony Edwards to climb that. But if they get hot in the next 3 months and Anthony Edwards leads them back to the Western Conference Finals, it becomes a legit discussion. If he leads them to the finals and now they've gone to a place that they never went.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm just saying, like, as bad as everyone felt 2 nights ago, there's a really interesting road ahead here in the next 2 or 3 months.
I think you felt really bad. I was mildly surprised, but you also had won 8 consecutive games. It's different when you let down after 8 consecutive wins as opposed to 2 wins, bad loss, 4 wins, bad loss.
If it was a fully stocked, because the Pacers are a good team and they're really well coached, and obviously they play their asses off.
Yeah.
If it was like Halliburton and Miles Turner and a fully healthy team catching the Wolves on a back-to-back, all right, whatever, tip your cap, right? It's the way that they lose some of these games. It drives you nuts.
So on the Ant KG talker, do you think that so the KG defenders would say what? The eras of basketball are different? That KG had to play a different
lower scoring era, 100%.
Yeah, because but if they make the finals, I think it's real hard to say that you're definitively wrong.
Yeah, it is, and
I'm
a KG guy through and through,
great.
and but also like I guess if you really want to zoom out and talk about all-time face of franchise, the fact that he has been absent for a decade now. I mean, he's shown up twice for different things because of the beef with Glenn Taylor.
Yep.
And understandable to some extent, but he has at every turn leaned into being a Celtic in the last decade versus being a Timberwolf.
Right.
His jersey's not yet up in the rafters, not because the Wolves don't want it up there, because he doesn't want to engage in that until Glenn Taylor's gone. So he's also kind of taken a step back from the organization that he was synonymous with for the first 12 years. So there's an opening here for Anthony Edwards to walk through. And I do think KG will be back part of the organization maybe as soon as the playoffs, once this transition goes through or the transaction goes through. But the fact that Anthony Edwards has equaled some of the team accomplishments in the playoffs as the leader of the franchise in a much, much quicker time than KG is interesting. So we'll see where the chips fall in the next 3 months. A lot of people think this is an absurd conversation today.
Well,
on March 19th, I'm telling you, it will not be an absurd conversation if they're back in the Western Conference Finals in the middle or late part of May.
I think the KG stands right now would dismiss the fact that he has not been like associated with or back with the team because of Glenn. Like what they're going to say is, well, of course he hates Glenn. But just as far as the pure success and playing, it's an interesting discussion. And it probably is, it's not there yet, obviously, but it probably is trending towards Ant being the top of that list eventually. I mean, the thing too is Ant, it's weird. So KG was beloved, but KG was a cantankerous, right? Because he was a tough nut. Ant is an odd guy at times, and as we've discussed, certainly not mature at times, but he's also a far more likable personality.
But people loved KG's person. Different. I mean, KG was more of a prickly personality.
Correct.
Ant is more of a fun-loving personality. But fans loved KG's personality because it represented this sort of Minnesota grittiness, toughness. He never once complained about living in Minnesota or the cold weather or any of that stuff.
He didn't want to be traded,
and he didn't want to leave.
Yeah, that's
they had
the
to shove him
thing.
out the door to Boston because they couldn't. I mean, think about how incompetent that's where you put another. That's a notch for KG in this argument, is that the front office was so confounded.
Yes.
They fired, Glenn and Kevin McHale fired Flip Saunders as I don't know what else we're supposed to do. We have to fire Flip now. And they were so confounded for how to put a second superstar consistently next to Kevin Garnett that they just said, I guess we'll shove him out the door and send him to Boston for Al Jefferson.
I don't want to go. And they're like, no. And then they make a trade that you could not win. You were not going to win that trade. So,
No.
And they didn't.
No. So I'm curious what people think if
I
I'm
would
completely
clip
off
that,
my
Declan,
rocker with
and just stop it once his first statement is done.
Yep.
With no explanation, no facts. Just clip that part and be like, how about this wild take from Mackey today?
I think KG is garbage. You can just AI the whole thing.
He is just not that good.
Most overrated player in NBA history. Anthony
never.
Edwards is the next Michael Jordan.
Positive, Phil. KG, not good.
If you look deeper at that Pacers bench, it's actually one of the best teams in the NBA. All right, Judd, what is your hottest Timberwolves take?
It's this. This will be, so the 425 NBA season will be Chris Finch's most important season in his NBA career as a coach because of what he has learned and what he has had to do on the fly. So if you look at this, it's because this has been, I think it's very safe to call this a trying season. You're on the eve of training camp, and I'm sure that you were involved, but nonetheless, Karl Anthony Towns is traded. Julius comes in, Dante comes in, and you like them, but now you've got to incorporate them incredibly quickly. It doesn't go smoothly, right? So now that there is no question that there was adversity there. Julius not playing nice with Gobert in Toronto, wouldn't throw him the ball. Everyone's gesticulating. What's wrong with you guys? Why aren't you doing this? Gobert's mad. The big pout, right? You go through these ups and downs. You win 3, you lose 2. You win 4, you lose 2. And then also Chris Finch in the same time period until guys got hurt, showing no trust for a younger core of players who clearly some of them could play. Jalen Clark, really good. There are guys now that are playing more that should play more. I think that this is going to be at the tender age of 55. I think that Chris Finch learned more about coaching and not just X's and O's. He knows that. But I'm saying the actual art of coaching and the actual art of trusting and dealing, coming out, if this team wins a playoff round or two, coming out of the Cat trade, he gets credit. Like, that was tough because he rightfully so got dumped on for certain things where it's like, what are you doing now? And I really believe he's learned. The injuries did help to get guys playing time who probably would not have got that playing time. But I think this is at the end of his career. I think that this season is going to end up being the most important season in Chris Finch's coaching career.
Yeah, because I don't think he's anywhere near a hot seat at all, and I don't even know if he was when they were like 2 games under 500 through 20 games, and a lot of fans wanted him on a hot seat. But if you were to actually go in and talk to maybe Mark and Alex and Tim Connolly, the Brain Trust, I don't know that he was anywhere near. And right now the temperature is, I know they lost the other night, but like the temperature is very cool on the seat.
Yep.
But that can change very quickly the more expensive your team is. And they've been one of the most expensive rosters. The higher the expectations are, the more Anthony Edwards emerges into his prime. It can turn very quickly. I mean, hell, look at the Suns. More expensive, superstar players. And they've now fired 3 coaches in like 4 years.
Yes.
Yeah. Or 5 years or something.
Yep, not working.
And then, Budenholzer probably going to get fired. Mm-hmm. So I will piggyback off what you're saying and say that even more specifically, he will be judged on late game execution in these most important games. And if you look around the league right now at clutch time, the best teams in clutch time. The Wolves have actually played the most clutch time games, which is defined as a 5-point game with 5 minutes or less. The Wolves have played 42 clutch time games. Mm-hmm. Only one other team has played 40 or more. It's the Warriors. And so they've had all this experience in these clutch time games. They are 18-24 in clutch time games. That winning percentage ranks them 24th. And they also take a huge drop in offensive efficiency in those situations. So, like, I'll get in the weeds here a little bit. But the Timberwolves with effective field goal percentage, which essentially takes your field goal percentage with context that a 3-pointer is worth more than a 2-pointer, and it lumps efficiency into the equation for field goal percentage. For the season, all circumstances, the Timberwolves are a 55% effective field goal percentage team, which is 11th in the NBA. In clutch time, it drops from 55% down to 46%, and they drop from 11th to 24th in that category. Meanwhile, the Nuggets, the Cavs, the Celtics, the Lakers, the Thunder, the Pacers all get better in terms of offensive efficiency in clutch time situations. Some of it's Anthony Edwards, some of it's play design, some of it's maybe he's putting the wrong lineup combos out and leaning more on veterans and or political reasons for lineup combinations. But whatever it is, if they can crack that code and even just be equal to what they are efficiency offensively, I'm not even asking them to be like top 5, but if you can just get back to being like what you are during the other parts of the game.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing for Chris Finch to unlock at this point as we go into the most important games of the season.
I have a weird feeling that it's not going to unlock until the playoffs. And I don't know why.
But Ant's going to be the key to literally unlock that.
Yes,
right.
But it feels like the type of thing. So there's some weird things, in my opinion, that don't necessarily translate from the regular season to playoffs. Last year, now this is a small one, but the last game of the regular season, the Suns come into Target Center and they win by a bunch, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, the Wolves are dead. They can't win this series." And I'm like, just hold on a second here. It doesn't feel. It feels like it could change, and it did. Changed drastically. I think that this clutch time, these stats, and the way that they go about it could be altered in the playoffs very quickly. And you're right. Ant's the key. Ant's the key. But I guess I would like to see the possessions now and what they're trying to do. Because if you trust Ant and Ant can deliver, this changes instantly, right?
Yeah, and
I'm just telling you, I got a weird feeling about it.
I think it could too. I mean, Anthony Edwards says there is a switch to be flipped, and he has done it the last 2 or 3 postseasons. You know, he became this monster spot-up shooter last year that he wasn't when.
And aren't the Wolves, starting with Ant, too talented to continue this?
Yes.
Like, it's not like they're a bunch of buffoons.
And sometimes it's easy in today's world where we're just it's social media blasting you in the face, and guys like us on microphones every day, and you're just like you're digging so much deeper on what's happening in the moment, and if they have a bad loss, there's like 100 times more conversation about it in your face and in your senses than maybe 25 years ago during the Kevin Garnett era when there was just less media and no social media.
Right.
But there's got to be some. If you were to go back and watch like 80s Michael Jordan Bulls games where they're getting drubbed year after year after year in the playoffs, if you could put Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and podcasts and radio layered on top of all of that, I bet there would have been a ton of consternation about, because the Bulls had to fire Doug Collins, and why are they making these mistakes? Why are they losing to this team? And all we remember once you zoom out is, look how dominant Michael Jordan was. 6 NBA finals with wins in 6 attempts. Yeah, but the first one didn't come until closer to a decade into his career. Mm-hmm. And I think we're sitting here, we're like 3 years away from a peak, fully realized version of Anthony Edwards. And it's hard sometimes to navigate that when you're watching that, like, dude, there are some obvious things you should change when they trap you. Stop taking hero shots and trying to dribble out of it. Make the right pass. I think in 2 years, that's going to be a regular thing for him. And we're just stressing about how quickly a player can evolve and learn from the mistakes that are made.
I also think that there is a playoff Ant that we're going to see this spring that is going to be a natural maturation of what he learned last season in the playoffs. Yeah. So I'm just telling you, I got a weird. I think that clutch time stats. I think it's going to turn in the postseason.
They also give you one more clutch time thing here. So for the whole season, for all situations, all games, they are 10th in offensive net rating, which is up from, I think, 17th last year. So they've made a huge jump in offensive net rating, even without Karl Anthony Towns, who was their second leading scorer. So the other pieces have fit so nicely together, and DiVincenzo and the expansion of Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels, that they have made a huge jump as one of the top 10 offensive teams in the league. But in clutch time, they go from 10th in offensive net rating in all situations to 25th. So again, how can you better capture what is getting you through the majority of these games in this season instead of reverting to something less efficient in those moments? If you can figure it out in the playoffs, you could legitimately make a run to the later parts of May or maybe even June. All right, Dex will give his hottest Wolves take here in just a minute. But just down the street from Target Center, a little place called Brixworth, a great place to hang out before and after Wolves games. Also for away games, you can just belly up, eat some of those dry rub wings that everyone talks about, the Detroit-style pizza, and the North Loop Brixworth. There's also one in Burnsville, too, the OG Brixworth, but the one in the North Loop is so close to Target Center and even has some cheaper parking options. So you can park, stop by, eat, and then head to the game. And now that the weather is getting nicer, they are also known for their sprawling patio, just a beautiful patio, a great event space indoors, too, that I think you can get up to 50 or maybe 75 people in there. Nice little spot. So Brixworth in the North Loop, check them out before the next Wolves game. And actually, just literally across the block from Brixworth is Element Hotel. So maybe you're looking to spend a night or a weekend downtown Minneapolis. You're looking to bring some friends or family in for a fun weekend, a Wolves game, maybe a Twins game coming up. Element Hotel is absolutely the place to be. You've got great city views, natural bright lighting throughout the entire hotel and hotel rooms, parking on site, super walkable to some of downtown Minneapolis's finest establishments. So, yeah, and free breakfast that includes breakfast tacos, avocado toast, sweet potato hash, pancakes. That's right. 15% room rate discount Right now, when you go to scorenorth.com/element, that's a 15% room rate discount at scorenorth.com/element. All right, Dex, you're up next.
I'm going to throw a little curveball. It's not necessarily the hottest Wolves take, but a hot NBA take, and I'm going to double down on something that was proposed from Bill Simmons. My hottest take is the NBA needs to adopt this. Did you guys see the NBA schedule change alignment that Bill threw out? I believe it was late last week.
No.
Okay.
Talk
So
dirty.
this would be his hypothetical changes to the NBA season. So we go from 82 games down to 76 games. So we trim out some games. The regular season does not start until December 3rd. May 11th, the regular season would end. May 12th,
So we're pushing it basically.
Pushing things out. You're trimming games out. You're pushing the start. May 11th, the season ends. May 12th through the 16th is your play-in tournament situations. And then July 10th through the 17th, obviously for the idea of a 7-game series, would be your NBA finals. I really like this. I also think in the summertime, when baseball is basically kind of the only thing around for that late stretch of June into July, this gives fans a little bit more something to watch a little bit. I like this schedule proposal. I think the NBA should adopt this. It's kind of crazy when you really think about how Major League Baseball plays its regular season as twice as many games as NBA or NHL. But I think in terms of days played, they actually do it quicker from their regular season to the World Series faster than the NBA and NHL do. It takes forever for them. So I'm all for both NHL and NBA like changing up their formats. Hell, I'm also for, by the way, baseball going down from 162, but that'll never happen because of history and legacies and whatnot. I like this proposal. Start the season in December, carry it over a little bit into summertime. I think the NBA should adopt this.
I love this. And I think I would even be more aggressive and just start on maybe Christmas Day, which people talk about.
That was talked about, yeah.
But that now you're pushing, you're kind of reverse engineering. I didn't hear the podcast episode, but I'm assuming that some of this comes from the weakest spot on the NFL calendar and the sports calendar is July. Mm-hmm. Now, the NFL puts out that Netflix series brilliantly, and they're doing season 2 of Quarterback. But the NFL has training camp in the last week of July, and then August becomes very NFL-centric with preseason football, and it's full NFL in September all the way through January, February. So if you can get out of that sort of Q3, Q4 space, start the season later in December and not have... Is he keeping the in-season tournament, or did he not say that?
I think he still keeps the in-season tournament.
Because you could run the in-season... This is what you could do. I like the in-season tournament. It's harmless.
Yeah.
You could run the in-season tournament. Basically, the first month of the season could be the in-season tournament. So we're going to come out of the gate, in-season tournament starting like first week in December, and then maybe Christmas... Maybe you're crowning you probably wouldn't do it on Christmas, but you're crowning an in-season tournament champion like the week before Christmas, so you're making December more interesting. But then you're owning July because the NBA Finals would be July, especially when baseball's taking a week off for the All-Star break, and you could then run your draft basically a month later than it is now in late July, and then free agency early August. So the NBA would then own July and August more than they currently do. Okay.
I like it.
Yeah, and I do like the fact of, and this is when they actually talked about starting the season on Christmas Day, was to get out of football season as much as possible. So, like, you're not going up against the start of the National Football League. My only question is this. So, I'm sorry, Dex, when would the season end in July?
The season would end as late as possible in July 27th.
Okay. So, you would have, so there would be a little bit of a conundrum in Olympic years.
Yes. Yeah.
As far as if guys would go then and play and you would pause your season or get done quicker, whatever reduces, and it's not going to happen, but whatever reduces the regular season in hockey and basketball, I'm in favor of.
And this is more palatable than like a 60-game season or something, because the owners are going to be like, well, how are we making up 20 games?
Right.
Could you convince them you're all going to lose 3 home games? Or I guess, it'd be 3 because you're going from 82 to 76, and assuming the 6-game difference, you're losing 3 home games there, right? Mm-hmm. which that's not gonna make or break your finances because the bulk of the revenue, I think, is the national TV deals. But the benefit here is that we are going to have so many more eyeballs on our playoffs than before because we're running them up against nothing.
Just destroy baseball.
Well, baseball's
like, we got July
like,
still, right? And they're like, no, we're going to take that away from you too.
One of baseball's biggest mistakes has been not doing a better job owning June, July, and August. Like, well, we have games every day. Okay, but the product's not as interesting. So
we have
I
games.
kind of love this. But you can come watch us.
Yeah. No,
I'm kind of digging this.
Yes. Okay. I like it a lot.
All right. Well, why don't you let us know what your hottest Wolves takes are in the comments section. And while you're here, if you're watching on YouTube, click that like button and the subscribe button on the Score North YouTube channel. And you can also help us continue to grow Flagrant Howls on Apple and Spotify with a 5-star rating and a positive review.
KG, not that good.
Oh, God. Screw you.